Yes, we're ready.
That'd be 5:15. I was on the street. Commissioner Hopkins, we can use some regulation.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, gentlemen. On to minutes. Discussion motion to approve. Approve as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the motion carries. Next up, last meeting's calendar. Any discussion, questions, or comments?
Have none.
Previously signed documents, discussion and or motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. And on to department update. Sheriff Wright is here with information. Sheriff, nice to see you.
Oh, yeah.
I think everybody's welcome.
Excellent.
Except for my chair.
Yeah, right. So hopefully you all got the letter associated with some of the statistical data and all that in relation to the sheriff's office. As of right now, staffing, we're solid on our staffing. Dispatch a little tough. We had one position that was open and we've been trying to fill that. A second position came open as a relation to our civil clerk, transferring from full-time to part-time and then taking a full-time job with a nursing home as a nurse. So it's a transition over. So what ended up happening was we put out the civil clerk position. And then we had an in-house candidate that meet the bill and she happened to be working for dispatch. So she transferred over to the civil clerk spot, which left me then two positions open in dispatch. And then one of our other full-time members indicated that he had got a job offer as a police officer. So he transitioned to a part-time position. This just happened yesterday. So he transitioned from a part-time or a full-time position to a part-time spot in dispatch and took a full-time job at one of our neighboring police departments. So that left me with three open positions. Luckily, I was able to fill two of them over the course of the last few weeks. Two people that have, one is New Hampshire State Police dispatch background, and the second one was out of Connecticut that has a dispatch background. So we were able to offer those two jobs. One of the state police dispatch person actually starts on Wednesday. So that'll fill one spot. And then the second spot, again, we're in the process of getting that person on the books to come on board within the next couple of weeks. And then the third spot will be filled very shortly. We have over 20 applicants for the position with some really decent applicants. So we're currently screening through those and doing awards as we're getting the applicants in. So my anticipation is over the next couple of weeks, we'll be back to full staff in dispatch, deputies and bailiffs and in the admin group. We're all full staff there. As you can see with the statistical data that I've given you with the supporting documents, they're a busy crew, whether it be dispatch, deputies, bailiffs.
I don't have a report. Okay.
You don't have them in there. I apologize. I just emailed them to you. All three. They're not in there.
Okay. Ultimately, it showed the documentation supports all the different calls to service that we get in. Some of it's dispatch as a whole because they dispatch for all the different communities, and then the specific calls for service that the deputies have handled. So that's all in there. Ultimately, I'll give you a quick rundown, seeing as how you don't have it. Well, you probably have the letter, but ultimately we have handled 6,429 calls for service. We've taken in over 1,200 new civil documents. The deputies have made over 1,600 process attempts, service process attempts. Conducted over 1,200 transports. They've done 345 arrests. And we did change the way that we reported. So the way that arrests used to be calculated, so years prior were each person who had a warrant, if they had multiple warrants in one physical and custody arrest, it would be multiple arrest numbers pulled for each one of the warrants that were active. The methodology back then was because each case is its own separate case. It took one arrest for each one of those warrants. The deputies felt that through conversation that we should probably show one physical in custody arrest, and we can list the multiple warrants as offenses within that arrest. So you would see a decline in arrests, but really we're actually higher in arrests now just because they're clearing more warrants. But if we had continued the way that we were, we'd probably be double the numbers. So it's more of a clear depiction of what we're actually doing now. So one physical arrest, clearing multiple warrants means one arrest number. So that's what you see right there in reports. No different than if I made one car stop or a headlight out on you, and then I found out that your license was not valid and all that. Is that 2 car stops or 1? It would ultimately be 1 car stop, but 2 offenses. So we're just trying to get more accurate numbers as to how many people we actually physically come in custody with. They tried 676 warrant service attempts. They made, at the time I generated this, 860 motor vehicle stops. They did 65 car stops last Friday in a 3-hour period alone. So those numbers significantly changed. And that was a saturation control in the south section of our county. They've taken in 147 investigative reports. Dispatch itself has managed over 28,000 calls for service. I did not do how many log notes they made. And part of that is just because I didn't process it. It doesn't calculate, like I have to actually sit there and watch the screen physically, and I just hadn't had the time to actually come up with that. But I can tell you that it's most likely over 10,000. That seems to be a normal amount of log notes. So that's status changes and different things that they put in there. A new radio system is nearing completion for cutover. I don't have an exact date on that, but they are indicating, the radio company is indicating to me that all the equipment has been stacked at least 6 out of the 8 sites. There's 2 sites that they're still putting in conduit to run the fiber lines and all that. So they're trying to do everything right now that they can because they're trying to beat the weather. So they assured me that within the next month or 2, they will have it cut over and ready to go. So that'll be a huge positive. Our IMC consolidation project, as of now, we have Barnstead, Center Harbor, Gilmington, Samerton, and New Hampton, which are completely consolidated with our service. The data conversion, it's going to take over a year to do, so we don't have all that old data transferred yet, but that'll be part of the project continuing. We are waiting for Alton PD to test their new icons on their computer system to see how the connectivity is working. We think that it's going to work just fine because it has everywhere else. We're just waiting for them to actually do it. Tilton and Belmont, they'll be cutting over most likely mid-October. So I know that my administrative assistant has been working on dates for that to happen. And again, when they cut over, we want to make sure that everything's working, and we're trying to coordinate our IT personnel. And that's 2 companies that we deal with, their IT personnel, our admin, and then their admin to make sure that all of them are all on the same, and IMC. So trying to get, it's like herding cats, trying to get everybody on the same phone call, the same location at the same time. So it's been a little tough and all that. We're looking at the CAD to CAD connection, which is also called Aware. That is basically a call for service that we populate will show up on a computer system elsewhere. That's non-interactive, so it's just a visible, they can just see it, which Meredith, Guilford, and Laconia have subscribed to that. Again, it's part of the consolidation project. We're looking at that should be done again. We're looking towards mid-October to the 1st of November for that. So ultimately, the entire project should be done by November for all the connections. Data conversion, again, is going to take over a year. We'll do one department at a time and just implement that data. But in between the time, we're still adding the new data. So every day, the new calls for service, new reports, new everything, will continue to build on the current system now. So it's all active and it's good. So far, I've had favorable reports from the departments that connected. Samerton and Gilmington are the 2 departments that probably have given us the most recent feedback as being very positive in that, everything seems to be working like it's supposed to. The court division, they've been very busy. ultimately, the courthouse is running, the Superior Courthouse is running between 1 and 3 judges per day. And depending on, so that requires us to staff courtrooms as necessary for these. So some days I have double 2 people working inside the courtrooms, if not 3, depending on if we have an in custody defendant. If it's a walk-in, then we normally have 2 people in there. So we've been utilizing a lot of court staff. And again, we're full staff, and we're not having a problem filling shifts, but we're using a lot more shifts than initially anticipated. We'll see how this plays out for the next month as to where we're going to be in the budget. Again, everything is reimbursable except for the $28.42. I think it's actually less than that now because they did, the court AOC is paying more effective July 1st of this year. They started paying a little bit more to us, but I didn't ask for the increase, so I kept it status for the duration. So there's a little less than 42 or 28.42. The project done with the courthouse, again, that's also created a need for our bailiffs to work a little differently, just because of the nature of where we're holding the defendants, which was upstairs, actually in the court area. So there's a couple holding rooms there, so we make sure that we have somebody planted there. Where when they're in the basement, you know, we still have a need for people, but it's a little different makeup, moving people from one place to another because we have stationary deputies there. But we're getting to the nearing end of that as well. So I don't have the actual date that they plan on completion, but they're moving along very well. We received the two new cruisers. That was back early this summer, and I talked about that earlier. They're still pending installation of equipment. So there still seems to be a delay on getting some of the upfit equipment, and things just sit there and park. We did bring one of the cruisers down last week. We'll bring the second one down next week to at least have it on the vendor's lot. So as parts come in, they can put it in there. But what has happened is we've had to spend more money on some of our vehicles that we did not anticipate keeping as frontline vehicles. So where a car, you know, was getting to the point where it needed new tires. Well, we said we have a new car, you know, that we're going to have new tires on, that we're not going to invest. But we got to a point where we had to invest. So we spent a little more money on the vehicle maintenance line to keep our fleet moving than what was anticipated. Our van had some significant rust that was hidden behind some really nice paint. So, you know, once that was found and located, we had to do some rust work. So that was a couple $1,000 just to get the van to be inspectable. And we also replaced some of the stickers, which was like $1,500. So at least it's identifiable as a Sharps van again. So again, that was not something that we were actually anticipating this year, but that's the cards that we were dealt. So we got that up and the thing's inspected and good to go. So we're hopeful that we can keep that going for the next couple of years and start talking about, well, in the CIP, we started talking about replacement of that. It's over $100,000 for a van. So the Bearcat had its makeover. So we got new paint. Paint was donated by Napa Snells, free of charge. Irwin's, which used to be the Canton's Auto Body, it's now Irwin's. They donated all the body work to it, as well as doing the actual paint job. San Bernardino PD donated a top light bar for us that came off their 2012 cruiser. So we got LEDs and stuff. One of our guys that works for us as a deputy sheriff also has wiring capabilities, and he was able to wire the whole thing up, you know, for cost of hourly, normal hourly rate. And basically the thing looks like a brand new Bearcat. It still drives great, so it's for short what we paid for stickering the vehicle. It was definitely well worth its money. The chef's unit, or I should say our command post that's at the chef unit down in Houston. They're doing the graphics now, and that thing should be ready to go at the end of this month. So the chief and I are looking at potentially going down to drive that beast back here sometime in October. So that'll be nice because it's all completely refurbed. Other than that, we continue to host classes here at the county, and we would put it out countywide for dispatch function, officer safety. Our bailiffs are attending their course. The state is actually revamping the bailiffs course or AOC security course. So we're waiting to see what that's gonna be like, and we'll continue to send our bailiffs to that. I believe that we only have 2 bailiffs down at the courthouse that are former police officers, retired police officers, that would need to go to this, or that we would want to go to this, just because it talks about court function versus police work. So again, we're doing really well on that. We continue to support the SART team, which is the Sexual Assault Resource Team, the Belknap Regional Special Operations Group, the Accident Team, and the New Hampshire IAC. That's basically the report that I have for the department. Do you have any questions?
Bill, when will the 2 cruisers be ready? Did they tell you? I know they're both on site at the vendors.
Did they give you an idea?
So, the one cruiser that's down there is just basically scheduling because they're backlogged with getting cruisers that have been on standby. So they said about 5 weeks.
That's the first cruiser.
Well, we dropped it off, so they said 5 weeks. So within the next 5 weeks, we need to have that one back and drop the second one off as well.
So we'll get the first cruiser back probably the first week of November. And then can you anticipate the second cruiser will be ready before Christmas?
I would think
They
so.
say it'd be ready before Christmas, yeah, because they want to try to get these jobs done too, but it's speculating because we've been waiting since we've had the cruisers take delivery.
So Bill, you said that the refit on the new communications is going well.
Yes.
And really on schedule. Did I understand you correctly that the total phase in time to integrate all of the towns and municipalities is a year out still?
Well, I think you're confusing 2 projects. So the radio project will be done. It should be done before November 1st. What I'm anticipating.
Mhm.
I know Motorola is trying to push it even sooner than that.
Mhm.
So once we flip the switch on that, as long as all the radio programming is done, which all the departments have been told, their vendors have been told, this is our new channel lineup. So November 1st, we should, in essence, flip a switch and it'll be operational. And that'll be a done thing. The IMC consolidation project, which is our records management and dispatch CAD. So that's our computer systems. That is something that we should have done. Again, I believe that everything will be done by November 1st, with the exceptions of the back data. So the data from, like, and I'll use an example as Tilton PD has back data from now to the past, whenever they started their IMC program. All that data has to be converted over into our numbers and all the sequences, or everything needs to be input into our server. So that's going to take, they said the completion of the project is September 2025 is when IMC, the computer company that we deal with, said that project will be totally completely done. So all that data that gets converted.
Okay. You mentioned that when you put out advertising to fill that vacant dispatch position, you had 20 applicants.
Over 20. Yep.
It seems that it's an unusually high number, but a pleasant number, because for most people, it's very, very difficult filling vacancies. You know, if you look at nursing, if you look at restaurants. Are you using a different methodology as far as advertising
No,
to get
what
that kind of keen interest in this position? Are
What
there
I'm-
extra incentives you threw in there?
No, so I don't have the ability for incentives. I don't have anything in my budget or any method. So what I do have is, I have the economy right now. So, and what I mean by that is right now there's a change in the economy. And as I'm reading the applicants, and I read all of them, I'm starting to find that jobs out there are starting to change from a full-time job to a part-time job, or that the hours are starting to get cut, or that some of the benefits are being cut, or whatever. Maybe they were temporary jobs for a period of time. So we're starting to see that dynamic change again to where the applicants that are coming and applying for us are more in line of people who are now looking for jobs that have some form of security behind it. In a dispatch job, and you folks have been the commissioners for a while, you know that dispatch is tough to fill and tough to keep.
Usually,
It's you know, again, the dispatchers that have left us over the last 2 years, they've actually gone to different places that benefit them. You know, I had one that just got done not too long ago. She started a family. Can be a stay-home mom. That's good. I want to just turn into a police officer. I want to just became our civil clerk. Like these people are leaving for that next step in their life. And dispatch is tough. It's a 24/7 job and it's not easy. So they're locked in a box for that time frame and they work a lot of hours. So again, what I'm starting to see is the change in the applicant process. People are just applying and they're looking for that solid job. And
So it's
that's what
been
we
more of
offer.
a timing phenomenon than anything else.
That's what I think.
Okay.
Yep, we're still, and again, we're advertising through Indeed and Facebook and that's pretty much the main spots that we're doing it here.
Very good. Commissioner Waring?
You mentioned your trolls from last Friday was significant. Was that a request from those communities in the southern part of the county, or was that?
No, so it's more like, so last week, they had a day that there was no transports. Civil process was caught up in that they had some free time, basically. So the deputies had come together and said, hey, we hadn't spent that much time in the southern area of the county doing any type of motor vehicle enforcement type stuff. So they asked early in the week if they could, come up with a couple hours where they would go out, basically 9 to noon, and just go and work on traffic stuff. I said, sure, just reach out to the local departments and let them know what we're doing and, invite them along, whatever, and go have some fun. So that's exactly what they did. And they hit the 3 communities, which is Alton, Barnstead, and Gilmington. And each one was right around 20 stops per town. And there were 6 deputies that participated in that, myself included. I stayed out there for about an hour and a half in the Gilmington area. So again, it's a good way for our people to make community contacts, show people that we're able to do that function, and support those local agencies who have 1 or 2 officers on for the amount of community that they have. It's very well received, because we do social media and all that. It's very well received with the community. So they like seeing us out there, and it's exactly what I continue to promise, that we're connected to our community and responding to it. And on top of that, I don't know if you've watched the news, but there's been over 100 deaths already this year in New Hampshire as it relates to motor vehicle deaths, and that they just posted a little while ago today that 400% increase in deaths of young people as it relates to motor vehicle crashes. So there's not one community that I've seen that's been able to cover every street all of the time. So we continue to be out there. And I also want to point out that I have deputy sheriffs that enjoy interacting with the community, and these are good opportunities for us to have those short duration of connection to them and create some dialogue. And some of it sometimes, we end up with arrests, we end up with citations, a whole bunch of warnings, because again, we want to educate the public as to what the speed limits are and get them to slow down. But we're being part of our community and the safety portion of it. And again, it's for short durations. And I am aware that sensitive about people are sensitive sometimes about what our function is or how we do it. They're used to traditional sheriffing where we do our transports and whatever, and people don't even know that we can stop cars. But we're trying to change that ideology and say, we have some deputy sheriffs that are very motivated, and in between their statutory duties, there are other responsibilities as well. So RSA 1046 covers that. And I make sure that our deputies are doing the work that they're supposed to be doing when they're supposed to be doing it. And then those open times within their hours, they're working. It's awesome. So it's working great. So.
Sure. Too much state leases to the 70 positions.
Yeah, so that's another thing too. So state police is still vacant, like 70 positions. Now we're not doing much interstate patrol. We'll do some of that when we do highway safety grants, just because that's covered within the grant. But they're down people. We still have other local departments that are still down with patrol officers or certified patrol officers. So even if they're filling their positions, they still have officers that are not actively working the streets as an individual officer. So we're cognizant to that as well.
Did you say a new van at $100,000?
Yes, actually, it's more like 110,000.
Just a regular prison van?
Yeah, that's all the transport equipment and
Yeah, yeah,
the update and, yep. Yeah, those are the complexities. The $50,000 fully loaded vehicles are non-existent anymore. So I mean, if you look at what we're paying right now for cruisers, for just a standard Explorer, fully outfitted, I mean, you're talking, you know, $65,000-$70,000 for that. That's why we finance them, you know, for 3 years now and do the lease program so we can, you know, get the latest, greatest technologies put in there, as well as, well, every year or two, they change the vehicles anyway. So you got to buy a new cage for it or what have you. So just doing it that way is kind of how we're doing it. In the vans, you know, I look at like a town like Guilford where they got 2 vans from Meadowbrook. We have 1 van since 2009. So if I got to invest $4,000 this year to extend out another year or two, then it was worth it because we use it. And that's, yeah, so the CIP program is kind of what we're looking for, you know, for the future, saying that it's because it's a big purchase. And again, we want, you know, that there's not a whole lot of technology in the van. It's a transport van, so we keep it very basic, if you will. But yeah, it's a big purchase.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you. I have 2 other things that were included in this. One is I'm pleased to inform you that we've been awarded the 2025 Highway Safety Grant for the 10 radar units and the overtime reimbursement. This was something that I had requested to apply for. Now I'm asking that you agree that this is a good thing and that we would accept this grant. The grant award combined is $29,462.50, with the county match being $6,687.50. That's what we would have to come up with, and that's for the 10 radar units. I would be looking at, I would not be looking at, so because of the way that this grant system works, their fiscal year starts October 1st. So I would ask that you accept this grant with the understanding that I will not be applying $6,687.50 in this year's budget. I would be budgeting it through the budget submission, which I just submitted my budget last week, with this total in the request for a grant in the grant line. So I wouldn't spend this money until after the budget's approved. And then if the budget doesn't get approved, then I would not go forward with this, or I'd find alternative funding.
So you're going to bake in that 6,000 and change for the next budget cycle? When we have
Yes.
your proposal next month?
Yes. So that's one reason that in the new budget, you will find my budget request, you'll find this amount of money in that budget as being a grant process with the intentions that it would be spent for that. So that's the first one. I don't know if you want me to go one at a time, because I did include both of them, both grants. In highway safety, they like to combine things. So we applied for one grant and then they called us back and said, hey, you guys want more money because you're doing all this work. So the next one is an authorization to apply for a grant, which is the New Hampshire State Police J1 grant. And the J1 is Commissioner Hodges probably knew this because they started developing it back in '91, I believe. It's actually a connection between us and the courts and the Department of Safety or highway motor vehicle. So we can do e-ticketing and e-crash and all that. So everything is done electronically. But they made an offer to us to get 6 new mobile data terminals with all the stands and the in-car printers. So over the last couple of years, I've been trying to get all of our cruisers updated with computers in the cars. One year we did it through the budget, and we ended up with a couple of cruisers with mobile data terminals, but no printers, and it doesn't connect to the state through e-citation because we don't have the printers and all that stuff associated. So this would be replacing those particular cruiser MDTs with new MDTs that have all the upfit in order to do everything. So last year, or I should say this year, we had it installed with 6 of them. We have 12 cars. 6 were installed with the printers and the computers. Last year and the year prior is when we had a mixture of MDTs being put in the cars that were not grant and not part of this process. So that would be replacing those ones. The total grant is $45,155.94, with the county having to pay $6,000 for installation costs. Now, we're not actually gonna pay the $6,000 separate. The equipment that's used during the grants can be applied, so we bill out the cruisers and the officer, that money can be applied to the. So there was so what you see on this paper is $6,000 is what the county's gonna have to come up with. There's an additional $3,000 that shows in the actual grant itself that looks like that we should have to pay. So it looks like we should be paying over $9,000. We're not gonna pay that additional $3,000 because we can utilize the work hours of when we're out doing these motor vehicle enforcement as part of, it's $25 an hour for each car that we have out there, which detracts from the amount of the required grant amount. So $3,000 has been deleted. So the only thing I'm asking for in this grant is to accept $45,155.94. The county's part that we have to pay is the $6,000. So that's how much we would have to pay for that.
And that can be an FY 25
Yes.
budget.
So this too would be put into the budget as our fiscal year 25.
Bill, to come up with that $3,000 and pay that back, how many man hours of patrol was that?
Have you had that? I think we did that. 95. I think it was 94 hours. Yeah, 94 hours.
94 hours of patrol.
Yes. Yeah. And all those patrol hours would be during the grant. So it can be done during the grant times that we have for the highway safety grant.
Because I just want to make sure we're good. So you need a motion to accept the award on the highway safety.
The first part. Yep. Highway safety.
29,000
And then we are requesting permission to apply for the MDT grant.
Yes.
with 45,000.
Yes.
And the incidental cost of the county would be $12,000 in next year's budget.
Just over 12,000 for that. Yep. And then remember that you had already accepted the $10,000 highway safety grant overtime. That was the 10,000 previous that I've also put into the budget.
So are you gonna have to show that, so you have an officer who can install these MDTs?
Yep.
Valued at $3,000 roughly. Is that
No,
right?
no. So the way it works is so the hours of the installation are what the radars of what we end up installing, and that takes off one of these
Okay.
grants. So the installation of that, we take what the hours that person worked and what the total of their salaries were, we can apply that
As the match.
as part of the match. And then the other part of the match will be the actual hours that we're working the shifts are also what's applied.
All right.
Or if we just said we're just gonna write off the install, our person just installed it, so on and so forth. Oh, then it's 94 hours of work that would take up that amount.
Okay.
And that's just for the cruiser. That's just for the cruisers. It's not actual personnel work. It's the cruiser that's working.
All right. You're
Bill, you
just
confident
somehow,
that-
you're gonna have to somehow show the county's match.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yep.
So whether
And
that's,
they scrutinize very well.
Yeah.
And that's not a problem at all. Yep.
Alright.
Yep, we've continued to do that all along as we've been doing these grants anyhow.
Bill, you confident you'll have those 94 hours available for your folks to do that?
Absolutely, because it's built into the previous, the $10,000 grant that we did for the overtime, so it all matches right in there. Yep. Yep, I'm totally confident.
Questions, comments, commissioners?
Yeah,
Do we have a motion to reflect?
other motions or one?
I think 2 would be clearer.
So I'll move to accept the grant. That we take the grant for 10 radar units.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye, the motion carries. On to the next grant.
Move to accept the sheriff's request and authorization to apply for the New Hampshire State Police J1 grant.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
These grants are a lot of work, and we're trying to make
They
it
are.
work for us.
They are.
So we've got some really good gear and equipment and stuff. And again, when you ask what incentives we give our people for employment, this is it. It's getting them gear and equipment and the ability to work these overtime rates. I can't keep up with our partners here in Laconia when it comes to funding for salaries. But grants like this do help. They're supplementing their work and they're getting us out there. So it's giving the county a really good name with the public.
Understood.
So, any other questions, comments, or concerns?
Should be a good long-term investment paid back to the county. 75,000 and we're putting in 12. So it's a pretty fair exchange long term. But not knowing what next year's budget will look like, we'll see where it goes, but we should, Deborah, you see any issues covering that in the budget? But, no, we're
Excellent.
good. Yeah.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Sharon. You too. Okay, commissioners. Judith McGrath is here from Deeds. Registrar of Deeds, nice to see you, Judith.
Evening,
How are
very well, thank you.
Glad to hear it.
So I have two things tonight, but I think I'll start with department update, which will lead into the second request I have this evening. So right now, as far as revenue in the registry of deeds, through August, we have just over 628,000 in revenue. If we stayed at this current projection, we would have a projected deficit of approximately $50,000. However, we still have the last quarter to go. September has been very strong. So with any luck, we'll make up some of that deficit before the end of the year. Miscellaneous income, which is bank interest, is up slightly. So far this year, we have $1,049 in interest. That shows a slight increase of just under $200 from our projected. Document count so far this year, we have recorded 8,000 documents, which is right on par what we thought that we would be recording at this point in the year. Interesting fact, our electronic recordings is up 78%. That's an all-time high. So 78% of our documents are coming to us submitted electronically versus by paper. So that is kind of significant. As far as our budget expenses, we're right on track. My department right now is at 63% spent, which I think projections we should be at 69. So I'm just below where that is concerned. So comments are basically what I've already said. It appears that 2021 was the high watermark for both recording revenue and docket counts. The year-to-date figures that I'm looking at so far are more in line with the 2018 and 2019, which is prior to the pandemic. Overall, real estate prices remain high. Inventory is down, so volume is down. We see cash buyers, not many with mortgages, and don't see any refinancing of mortgages yet. But the economy getting better and prime interest rate dropping, that might change for next year. But for now, cash buyers, no mortgages, no refinancing. March of this year, we sent out 2 more plat books for restoration. Since they went out, we were notified by CoFile, who does our book restoration project, that they shut down the local lab in Vermont. So our books are now at their facility in North Carolina. I inquired as to the progress of our restoration. They said that they are in a bit of a bottleneck situation. They don't have a completion date as of yet, but they have done the inventory and were able to give us an updated cost estimate, which is lower than what we budgeted for. So we'll have to figure out what we're going to do moving forward, if we're going to continue to send books out to North Carolina or not. I'm not totally comfortable with that unless I get some guarantees that they're going to courier them, with their own private courier versus a commercial, shipping company. As far as the property fraud alert, I did the did the press release last year in Laconia Daily Sun, that we got a huge response from that. I get calls all the time from, property owners in Belknap County that say we signed up for it, it works, they got notified, they got the text message on their phone. And they're very happy that we offer that free service. And other than that, I don't really have anything else except for my next request.
Okay.
We're ready.
Ready? Okay, so I have a request to fill. And what I'm looking to do is to hire a registry clerk. Projected start time would be November. The reason for this is I will be retiring at the end of this year. There is a staff member in the office who will be the presumed register-elect, as she's running unopposed. So if that transition happens as we fully expect it to, there'll be a vacancy in the office. So I'm asking to fill the registry clerk position, which would overlap by 2 months for November, December of this year, if we can get them started that quickly, in order to give the office time to train that staff. I'm leaving the office at the end of the year, then it would be level staffing. So it wouldn't be a new position, it would be an existing position. We're just overlapping it for training purposes.
So you're asking for a 2-month grace period to ensure a smoother transition. Makes sense to me, Commissioner. Thoughts on that request?
Is it the budgetary funds to cover it?
Yep, Administrator Deb Shackett did plug into my budget the cost of that staff member, and we can cover it with the current funding in my department.
Do you think you'll be able to fill it, Judy?
I fully hope so. I think I shared the sheriff's sentiments that I think that there's always somebody looking for a good full-time position with benefits.
Any discussion?
I'll make a motion that we allow the registry needs to backfill that position.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the motion carries.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Judith, thank you.
Thank you.
Nice seeing you and
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
One more budget cycle. and then we'll finish it. Thank you.
and please know from our end, you'll be missed.
Thank you. I
Thanks, Laura.
appreciate that.
Okay, Commissioners, next up we have Mr. John Bond.
Aye.
John,
Good evening.
good evening, sir.
So I've reported to you kind of a number of times on the state of the heating and air conditioning in the courthouse. So I narrowed down on the solution. I did an RFP and put it out to bid, which is basically to replace 2 energy recovery ventilators on the roof. To control cooling, humidity, and heat on the first level of the courthouse. Had what I think is a very good response. We had a lot of people look at it. We had 5 bids. KPMB Enterprises was the lowest bid at $141,510. So I feel very confident in recommending them because they've done work here before. We awarded a contract to them earlier this year for the VAV boxes in the nursing home, and they did a really, really good job for us. So I'm very confident in their work and think that they'll do a good job for us. The lead time on the units, if you decide to approve this project, is 14 weeks. So it's basically a little bit shy of 4 months. So it'll be more than likely a Q1 project by the time that these units come in. But they, even though it's winter, they do want to get going on right off when they do come in. So the other request in this is that the current appropriation for this work is $100,000 in the capital improvements fund. And so this project is short $41,510 to fully fund it and move forward with the project.
So Deborah, where do we find the money? to Pay the overdraft.
Transfer from unanticipated expenses.
Where do we sit with the ARP projects?
At our budget, actually slightly over, and every day praying for more savings in the courthouse project. Of course, that said, we sit with $750,000 for
What
solar.
I thought the timeline was everything had to be contracted by December 31st of this year.
It just has to be obligated, which doesn't mean contracted.
What does that mean?
It just means basically I have to tell them this is what we're spending the money on. So there is no requirement that it be under contract at all. So
So December 31st, we determined what it's obligated for, and we can't change it after that date.
that's right. Every quarter, I'm submitting a report to them of obligations. And that amount keeps changing and fluctuating as our needs have changed. So that when that quarterly report for December 31st gets submitted, I won't be able to change the obligations anymore. So we could still now use that money on something else. And it won't, the impact on the solar project is that we won't be buying down the rate as much. We can still do solar if it seems beneficial.
We're heading down the path, it's off of this path, but what, do we had any updates or heard anything on the solar project?
The only update that I can tell you is that they were hoping to do a group study of our project with 6 other projects within the county, with other entities that are doing solar projects. Eversource decided not to include our project as part of the group study. As such, they will not even be looking at the project until September of 2025. And once they start looking at the project, it's anticipated to 6 to 8 months from there before they do the full interconnection study and come back to us with how we hook the solar up to the grid.
Well, that certainly means we've got a bigger conversation to have.
Yes.
That's my opinion, that between now and December 31st, we need to decide whether we're going to commit to a solar project or we're not. And if we're not, then we've got to figure out where $700,000 is going to be spent. We're gonna obligate it, I think, December 31st, so.
I can tell you, and this is, please, excuse me, it's coming from memory. But if we put $750,000, we buy our rate down to 6.5 cents per kilowatt hour. If we do the community power program that we presented on at one of the meetings, it's 8.3 cents per kilowatt hour.
Right.
Without spending no money.
And we keep our,
That's what I was gonna bring up.
Right.
I'd like to really look into the community program. I think it's something that I know I'm in favor of doing.
Agreed, and I'll also say the commissioners and the county administrator. And I agree with Commissioner Waring, we need to start seriously thinking about repurposing those monies because we just cannot be in limbo indefinitely, only to find out that the project's not gonna work for us.
I think we can pretty quickly come back with a proposal on what to do with that $750,000.
The opportunity.
Yeah, if you want in the next 10 minutes.
No,
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 but I mean, yeah.
we have 3 months, John, to
Yeah.
find out where we can better purpose that $700,000.
This is something that Administrator Shack and I talk about all the time as we sat down and did the CIP, for the budget presentation. There's so many items that we would be able to focus that money on and then some, to be perfectly honest with you. I think the community power program, in my opinion, saves our taxpayers 2 times. One, they pay for electricity cheaper and we pay less electricity, so they save it in taxes. So our residents are getting basically discounted twice.
Makes sense.
I'd like to see us carve out some time to get serious about this community program.
Yeah.
And
Well, it sounds like it needs to be the next meeting. Because we
put it on the agenda, get it moving, because I think it's a win-win situation.
Agreed.
I'm ready to jump on it. Like,
So in the meanwhile, we need to peel that art money to finish
Fund
this project, because it's 14 weeks out as it stands as of today. That's a long time. They'll
Yeah.
be working in the snow and the ice.
Yeah, that building will be cold.
There's no way to accelerate that. If
we can try, and we can ask. So if you approve the project tonight, I will issue a PO tomorrow to the vendor. And I will have a discussion with them. I'm sure they will order it right off. And I will ask them, and I've been dealing with the manufacturer Green Hack directly on this project. And I'll ask them if there's any way that they can really shuffle it right up to the front if possible for us.
We would, the commissioners
Yeah.
in the county at large would appreciate
Yeah.
that. So Deborah, in the motion, to accept John's request for the overage. How to word, do we need an amendment to get the 40-something thousand from the ARPA funds? So,
If, at this point, if you just approve his, recommendation to award the bid to KPMB, then he can get started. That's what John needs.
okay. All right, I move we accept the facilities manager's proposal for the courthouse project, EBR project,
Second.
ERB project.
And second.
All in favor?
I,
Aye, the motion carries. Thank you, commissioners. And John, you'll let Deborah know, of course, we push the timetable up a few weeks, even 10 weeks will make a difference.
Yep.
Rather than 14.
Do the best we can for sure.
thanks, John. Be nice to get this put to bed.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yep.
Okay.
Are you doing a tour tonight? Okay,
No, not tonight.
okay.
We'll do it later. Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
Okay, next up, we have a financial update from Lori Sharp. Hello, Lori. How are you?
Hi, good, how are you?
Good, thanks. Hope you bring us good news.
And if you don't,
Should I go? All right. So first thing you might have there is a nursing home receivable. We continue to collect, for some prior year, owed amounts, so we collected $11,000. In 2023. And so I would say that's good news. And you can see that July, August, it's kind of evening out a little bit in the percent collected, and the reason for that is as the year goes on and we collect less of 2023, you'll see that amount kind of level out and not look like you can see the prior month 107%, 110%, and that's because of collecting those prior year owed amounts.
One quick question.
Yes.
Can you explain to me why for August 31st, the 2019 number was doubled instead of going down? Why would they?
Oh, I
Right,
can
updating.
explain that to you,
Great.
yes. And that's kind of, yeah, so. I don't know, Shelley would be the better person to explain it, but I will take a stab at it. So there are some accounts that have credits, and some of those accounts do actually go back as far as 2019 in this case. And in some cases, it's just simply something needs to be reallocated. So maybe we got money and it was allocated in Med A, and it was supposed to, it got changed along the way and it's supposed to go to Medicaid. So some things are that. And so reallocations happen. The other times, there are instances where somebody may pass in the current year, and as their account gets scrubbed and put into a probate situation, they may actually find that an overpayment was had. And so we do owe that money back, and it might be most of the time owed back to the state. In a few cases, I have seen where it is owed back to like the family's trust. And so that is the reason why. It's because as they're cleaning up things like that, or they find things like that, it'll naturally increase that amount because it's a credit that's now being removed from that account. Surely is not ideal, and we try to avoid that, that's obviously.
Yeah, it's the first time it's happened. First time I've noticed it for sure. Certainly in the 8 months, it's the first time it's happened, so
It's,
it just seems odd.
there was a recent amount that was paid back. Yes, and it was due to a passing. The next thing we have is the cash flow. We did secure a TAM, a second borrowing, which was put into place late last week. So that TAN received last week will get us through December 17th, when the town taxes are due to the county. The rate we received was 5.2%. We only did receive 2 bids, Bank of New Hampshire and JP Morgan. Bank of New Hampshire was higher considerably than JP Morgan. And naturally, all of that information was flowed through the treasurer, and he ultimately selected the lower of the 2. And the other thing, which, I mean, I asked the question, so I'm gonna share it, is, you know, it seemed like 2 bids was kind of low. It seemed odd to me. And the answer for that is because a lot of people decided not to bid with only a few months left in the year is the reason why there were less bids. And also we did get the lower rate, which was reduced recently by the Fed. Next thing you'll have is your revenue and your expense budget actual. And I'm gonna run through some highlights on those. I guess the first and very important thing to mention is that the surplus and deficit numbers that we talk about are projections. And they may change. In a lot of cases, they can change, and in some cases, they probably will change. The county convention and the county attorney both are still projecting a surplus. The other thing is if there's not a lot of change as far as the details from before, then it's more of a high level like that. I'm going to indicate, if there was something significant that changed, then I'll have more detail that mentions that. Administration still projects a $5,000 deficit. IT continues to project a surplus. Finance is still projecting a $5,400 deficit. Deeds, and I feel like some of my job has been done well for me here because the people that have gone before me have highlighted some of the things that I'm about to. So deeds is still projecting a small surplus, and that's due to the savings in the file and data restoration, where the final cost came in lower than expected. And then the surplus, as Judy mentioned earlier, includes the added position that she spoke about. Maintenance is still projecting a $2,900 surplus. The sheriff's department changed a bit. It's now projecting a deficit. Again, it's a projection. There are some things happening there, as the sheriff mentioned, specifically in staffing. So the projections are going to change in this case, depending on when those positions in dispatch are hired, what kind of health insurance plans they take, all really determines what will end up happening there. So when we get that information, we'll make an update, and then that's going to give us a better picture of where the department lands at that time. And it sounds like we should have that information maybe for the next meeting then. Corrections, excuse me, restorative justice and health and human services are all still projecting a surplus. Debt service will have a deficit now, and that is due to the second borrowing and the fees associated with that borrowing, the bond counsel fees that come with that. I was going to speak to capital projects. I'm not going to really, there's nothing to mention there at this point. They were potentially going to have a deficit there, and now that just changed with the conversation you had with John. So that's now not an issue there. Nursing home overall, the nursing home is projecting a small surplus. The surplus the nursing home is projecting is $65,246. So the nursing home is really a concern to keep an eye on. Now, they're aware, we talk with them, Deb and I talk with Shelley a lot about the budget. So there are a few areas to watch, the contracted nursing, something which may seem so insignificant as a nutritional supplement. Those things are skyrocketed in price. They don't seem to be going down, and it's a necessity that they need. So they are taking very good care to keep an eye on their budget. The general fund is projecting a surplus of $393,796. So the total overall surplus being projected between the nursing home and the general fund is $459 or $459,000. Revenues are projecting a $640,000 surplus overall, the general fund and the nursing home. So the revenue and expense surplus combined would add $1,102,454 to the fund balance at the end of this year. And there are areas, as I mentioned, that we do think will have a deficit. I believe that finance will have a deficit because of the staffing issues. I believe that admin will probably have a deficit due to the legal in that area. What I would recommend, I know we've talked a lot about this, but it seems that waiting a bit until we get a little bit further along in the year to see what's actually needed, and if we're going to make any transfers, make them at that time, and maybe we could do them all at the same time. And that is what I had for the expense.
So, okay, so we'll need to keep a watchful eye on nursing day going forward.
Really, yeah, a very close watch. We look at the budget actual continually. We talk with Shelley continually, really. I mean, it is constant. Keeping an eye and just making sure of what's happening.
And the fear really is, it's not, I mean, we can watch it every day, but it's the things like bed tax. That can blow, that can use up that 65,000 easily, or a couple extra weeks of outside agency nursing that we didn't plan on. There's big things, expensive things that can easily reverse the course of that. And we will just, you know, the nurse home administrator is aware of it, and so we're all being careful about it.
Shelley, what will the projected fund balance be at the year of this edition?
At the end of the year, the projected fund balance would be $4,697,180.
Just,
It's good, but it wouldn't leave much to apply to next year's budget.
right.
Yeah.
The unanticipated expense category showing fully expended, projected. How that,
I thought we fixed that, so that didn't show.
You're right, it is. Okay. Take that
I'm
out.
afraid we can look at that.
you're not projecting that it's going to be fully expended or
It's not at all.
expended at all?
No. No. So the 459,000 bottom line is 659, so that's even better.
I'm not convinced if your, the total isn't already including the 200,000 in there, but. It's just looking at the large numbers.
Which the 450
The
is.
393 for the general fund. Just look at the categories, I don't necessarily.
No, because it's
see
not
how it
carried
gets there,
over.
but that 200,000 is included in it, so.
No, you know what, you're right.
That,
Yeah, see, to the side where it says surplus deficit, there's not anything listed there, and if that were,
I understand that, but.
Yeah.
I look at each category in the general fund that the department took surplus or deficit total. You got human services, $270,000, there are corrections of 82, so. That gets me to 350. And there's a few that are minuses. Well, I have a feeling that your 200,000 is already included in that 393.
great,
I don't think the 393 is 593. I think you need to check math. So total is just to confirm it, but there's definitely questions.
you have it up on your, do you have it on your computer there?
Yeah, I think the correct answer here is yes, we will check it, and we will definitely let you know.
Thank you.
Okay. We can report that in that next meeting. At the next meeting.
Get back to us.
Could be in another column somewhere that we overlooked.
No, I don't think it could be in another column. I think it's without verifying, I don't want to try to do this right now because we have to verify every total and make sure they're all.
Let her
correct,
look
but-
into it, that's fine, no problem.
I'll take that right after. the other meeting.
Thank you, Lori.
Thanks, Laurie.
You're welcome.
Okay, commissioners, on to other business. Deborah, what do you have for us?
I don't have anything, I only re-emphasize and remind you about Employee Day.
Yes, okay. Noted.
We have our notices in our box, that's not.
You'll send us a reminder. And. Okay, good. Any members of the public like to speak? Seeing no members of the public would like to speak. And we are going to postpone our tour of the courthouse basement. Although we understand they're making great progress as expected. So move we adjourn.
So declare it.
It's up to you.
We're adjourned.